Got to start off with a fresh bottle. Give it a minute to have a few people come in the building. We are in here, and as the stream name says, the doc has done it again. Brings us the fresh science on the melanated body, which I have taken a decent look at. I'm not going to say from where I stand that it's that the information is difficult to grasp, because I can tell you, like, from me reading it, it's not. But I can't project that on everyone else, because I've been studying for quite a while. So um reading about the Real cycle, the Inky cycle, um about the third ventricle, about melanocortin 1 receptor, about what's the other one? I mean, obviously melanin, right? Melanin concentrating hormone. These things are not difficult for me to go over. But again, that's me coming from my perspective, because I've been looking at the information for a while. So if anything, everything that the doc has come up with, it kind of stacks on previous knowledge. And one of the things that I look at is how well, when people explain things, how well they go in like a 360 manner. Meaning, if I hear a concept and I start to question it, even in my own mind, and I look at all the concepts and things they bring up around it, does it complete a circle in terms of understanding? And so far, everything I've read, based on what Dr. Inky has put out, Emmanuel Briggs in the building, everything I've read so far that Dr. Inky has put out, talking about the third ventricle, talking about the coherent water domain, um, melanin concentrating hormone, melanin itself, um, and even though I don't think it's mentioned, melanocortin 1 receptor, pigmentation, water, sound, all of these things that he's been, putting out so far, they all make perfect sense as far as my study has gone so far, which is what's so great about it. And I agree with him. It's hard when figuring the type of person that Dr. Inky is. He expresses himself. He's not shy. He's not bashful about it. And because of that, people may think he's arrogant, but it's more confidence. It's his way of expressing confidence in what it is that he's learned. And I definitely agree with him about trying to get credit for the work, because this industry will, if you're not pretty forward with what you do, it'll eat you alive. So you really need to be able to stand on your square, so to speak, when it comes to this information. It's a really big deal. So yeah, what's going on, peoples? Who's in the building? Make sure y'all say what's up as y'all come into the building. I'm going to give some, I'm just giving some commentary over the new information that Dr. Inky has put out. And as usual, as I go over things, I'll give you a bit of explanation to go along with it. And, if I'm able to dredge up some time, I'll make a pretty creative video about everything with effects and cool stuff and all that good stuff. As I always talk, but I, have difficulty because I try and find time. That's why I always go live from the car most of the time. But yeah, say what's up as y'all come in. Make sure y'all hit the like on the video so that the message goes out to other people, right? Barbara Saunders in the building. We are in here doing the damn thing. I'm in Philly. The temperature is kind of like weird. Like, it gets hot in this car pretty fast, even when the air's not on, and the windows are down. But if you step outside, it's pretty cold. So Philly, as usual, with its up and down temperatures. Well, yeah, what's going on? Where y'all at? What y'all at work? Y'all listening in? But there was supposed to be some photography today, but after we had the big so-called snowstorm this weekend in the Philadelphia area, the baseball games I was supposed to photograph today got the fields. If you guys ever been on a baseball field, they have to be well prepared for people to play baseball on them. Otherwise, the conditions are not met and they can't go out and play. So, but yeah, so this one is called "The Doc Has Done It Again," because for those of you who've been following Dr. Inky, you know that for the past couple of weeks, Dr. Inky has been going in hard on diabetes, and to go along with diabetes is, shortly prior to that was a long couple of years of him expressing how, the body runs off of light versus electricity. New York, same way, good in the sun, cold if not. Yeah, I hear that. But yes, he's been going over, Inky being the god of water. Um, if you read the information in the classic, I'm trying to think of which mythology you guys know, like ancient Kemet based mythology. You hear about the god Inky, which is the god of water. So Inky, of course, always has been studying water. Melanin was a really huge subject among the conscious community for a long period of time. Like melanin is a really big selling point. Like pretty much if you had a stream going within like the past 20 years, about 15 years of that, if you had a stream going and the word melanin was mentioned, then your channel pretty much blew up. That's how important melanin was. Well, along with Dr. Inky's info, you could say this is pretty much the revenge of melanin. So because we're now at the point where there's no longer just the, protection from UV radiation and vitamin D developing melanin. We do know in the past that there was plenty of information. We got to credit our elders because there was a lot of information put out about the speed of eumelanated beings when it comes to development, processing, activity in the world, because pretty much what they had determined that was whatever melanated people was attached to, it pretty much, what's the term I want to use? It elevated the quality of or sped up the process of most things, right? So if you were a melanated being, then there was a faster development of the baby to becoming, sentient, so to speak, right? Having the ability to navigate within the world. That was a really big deal. Talking about melanin, the learning ability was faster. We talked about fast twitch muscle, which makes us more explosive, where slow twitch muscle made you more endurance based. And there was a lot of biochemistry and information backing that up. But within the past couple of months, and especially the past couple of weeks, Dr. Inky's been hitting hard on diabetes type 2, which we know as the sugar-based disease, which he is now renaming to the melanin disease, because diabetes seems to be a dysfunction of melanin. And if you read his current paper that he has on the website, then you'll understand that. Because what it is, sugar. Sugar is bound to practically everything: bread, milk, most processed foods, cigarettes, even the blunt wraps and weed wraps and stuff. Your hardened drugs. What else we got? Alcohols, vinegars, and so on and so forth. But sugar has really been a big issue. And now I believe on the last live stream I was talking to you guys about, I was mentioning diabetes because that was the name of the last live stream, and I was talking about how sugar is a crystal, and in order to liquefy that crystal, it must be saturated in water. So it made it easy for you to be able to see why, when you ate a bunch of sugar, that caused your body to have symptoms of drying out. And because we know that they always been telling you for years that the body is mostly this and that percentage of water, and we know that majority, if you name a bunch of the systems in the body, they're all going to have water. Like there's the liquid that's inside of the eye. There's your lymph fluid. There's your cerebral spinal fluid. There's saliva, stomach acid. You're going to always find some hydrogenated liquid in the body. So the body, clearly the body works with water. The drier the body gets, the worse it operates, the worse you become, the slower processes become, you age, you die, all that, so forth, so on and so forth, right? George Macon in the building. Yeah, so with that being said, we obviously don't want to add such a detrimental crystal structure, sugar, to our body and cause it to do things. Look at the symptoms, right? Dry lips when you have diabetes. your pancreas beta cells start to atrophy or basically go bad. Um, you start to go to the bathroom a lot. The nerves within your pretty much your nerves in general, but the nerves in the eye start to dry out, which makes them, and when they're dry, they tear easily. And obviously, if you have broken nerves in the eye, that turns into visual problems. Pooling of sugars in the blood vessels towards the feet, further away from the heart, slowing down the ability for blood to move the way it should, which will always move worse further from the heart, right? And because of that, you can wind up with stagnant blood, and stagnant non-moving blood. Things that don't move are considered dead, and things that are dead are kind of necrotized. So they start to pretty much die out on their own. And if you have dead tissue within the foot, there's no circulation. It starts to turn color. It's not being oxygenated, electrified, lit, all those good things. And eventually, doctor says, instead of solving the problem, the doctor says just cut it off so that it doesn't reach something else. Meanwhile, you need to understand that the cause of that problem can become the cause of that problem in another part of the body. So you just wind up constantly cutting and cutting and cutting, and you're never really getting anywhere, right? Is there an herbal sugar detox? Sugar is removed fastest from what I know, being that I've gone through diabetes before. So I'm actually experienced when it comes to diabetes and high blood pressure. So that is something, even though Dr. Inky is heading up the research on it, that is something you can ask me a lot about. So I appreciate the question, Barbara, but an herbal sugar detox, you don't really have a herbal based sugar detox from what I know. If we're including herbs into our regimen with diabetes, it's mainly because we're trying to reorganize or revitalize certain mineral systems and things in the body. So for instance, chromium is a really big deal. There's chromium that's needed for the eye to work, the pancreas to work. And what happens is when the pancreas runs out, it pulls from the eye. So by hyperperfusing the body with chromium, which can come from herbs or food, that will help to regenerate those parts of the body as long as you haven't damaged them to the point of non-repair, which is why you want to jump on things as soon as possible. You don't want to wait until you get symptom after symptom after symptom, high number after high number, medication after medication, and 20, 30 years later, something breaks and then you want to fix it. And it's like, well, you kind of waited too long. So, but the best thing you can use, the number one thing you can use when it comes to removing sugar from the body is water. If you're trying to, because you got to remember, one of the reasons you go to the bathroom a lot is because it's a crystal. So you can imagine, if I start to dump enough sugar crystals into this water, eventually it'll dissolve into the water and turn sweet. But if I put too much in it, it's going to become more viscous, kind of like corn syrup or a simple syrup that you would put inside of a pan. So in a simple syrup, you put water and sugar in the pan and you stir it and you heat it up and it becomes like a thick liquid. It starts to become stretchy. And obviously, the more sugar you add, and depending on the heat you use, it can harden. It can become like caramel, really, really stringy and stretchy and real sticky in terms of your teeth. So basically, it's the ratio of water to the sugar. You put the crystals in this water, then this water will become more dense over time. However, in the opposite vein, if I had this bottle empty and I dumped a bunch of sugar crystals in it, and it's just sugar in here, you hear it shaking up, right? And then I start to douse it with water, that solid crystal state will start to turn liquid, which means it's now movable. So the fact that we make it movable is so what happens? You get all this crystal in your blood gets sluggish and slows down. You dump a bunch of water in, the water helps, it meets up with the sugar, liquefies it, makes it move faster. And as it moves faster, your body realizes that it's a danger. So sometimes even your blood pressure can go up, because by increasing the pressure, you push things out faster, hence why you go to the bathroom a lot. The going to the bathroom a lot is helping to push the glucose, the what do you call it? The insulin receptor cells. All of those things are getting peed out, because as they go down, sugar levels go down. And when sugar levels go down or glucose levels go down, doctors can see that on the test, and that lets them know to back off the meds a bit. Okay. Who else we got? Chromium picolate, something like that. Yeah. If you're trying to find like a standard supplement, I was using what was the other thing we were using? Chromium and vanadium went together. So you could take a chromium supplement, you would take another one called vanadium, and the vanadium, I can't remember the name of it because I haven't taken it, since then. But vanadium will come in these little like white pill tablets, and you would take that. So chromium and vanadium go hand in hand when it comes to trying to revitalize your sugar levels and stuff. But that's not the base. You don't have to use that in like a supplement form. You can actually get that out of certain herbs and stuff. Majority of the way that I did things was not herbal. If they were, it was usually like bitters, just for better digestion. Because helping out your digestion, when it comes to diabetes, is not such a bad thing. So you have that, but it's all about if you're talking about detoxing sugar, as you say, water is going to be your primary. Everything else is going to be mineral because, like for instance, magnesium um, helps to create the aromatic structure necessary for a system to work. So that's what you would want magnesium for, especially bowels. Like if you're holding a lot of food in your system, and you have digestive issues, dealing with diabetes is going to be even worse. So you do want to cleanse yourself out. So you want to clean up the diet. You do not want to, don't try and play the sugar game with the fruit versus processed sugars. If you have diabetes, at the end of the day, you want your carb level down. I don't care if it's sugar, processed sugar, concentrated smoothie drinks, it doesn't matter. If you're making juices, no, you're not aiming to take a bunch of good stuff and douse it with a bunch of sweet stuff. You need to burn glucose, aka sugars, faster than they're coming in. That's the goal, no matter what. You have to burn it faster than it's coming in. Let me see, if your body turns food into sugar, wouldn't it be good to remove fat from the diet while eating fruit? Not necessarily. You gotta remember your body is converting food into acids. Okay, so the the structure. This is why, all right, so you guys hear KT pushing heavy on plants biochemistry, right? Inky pushes on light, melanin, water, biochemistry. If you guys notice, for the past couple of months, I've been pushing protein and shape. Is a carb a carb a carb? No, because you have to remember the structure. Like fats, you're going to see like strings of carbs. Like when they see saturated, unsaturated, stuff like that, you're going to notice that the shape of the chemical structure determines the type of way they can read what type of fat something is. So the chemical structure, aka, is the shape. And the shape determines the type of movement, damage, non-damage, building, and stuff that something can do. So whether it's a sugar, a protein, or a fat, you're going to find the word carb attached to it. But when you eat fats don't have a structure that spikes sugar levels. This is why they have glucose tolerance factor, because you have certain foods that will spike glucose levels and certain ones that won't. And that's because of the balance of chemistry being done, which produces a different shape, a different frequency. And the different shape and a different frequency determines the reaction within the body. Something that a carb is a fast absorbable type of energy. And because it's fast absorbed, it needs the proper materials to make it move the way it's supposed to. Hence why you get hence why you get the insulin, and then you get the glucagon. There's these balancing factors that have to go with processing it, right? You eat sugar, you're going to get insulin levels to tell you that there's sugar to be burned up. When you don't have enough sugar, you're going to get glucagon, which is alpha cells from the pancreas telling you that your body has to manifest and create more sugar. And how does it do that? 6-carbon molecule, which is glucose. Remember, when you change the carbon structure molecule, you change what it is you're dealing with because you're changing the shape, right? And depending on how big that shape is and how it pulsates, aka the frequency, will determine what it does, which is why I stress shape a lot. So glucose, once something reaches and becomes a glucose molecule, which is the point at which it can be burned faster than fat and protein, okay, that needs to be known. It's going to then, from 6-carbon molecule, break down to 3-carbon molecules, which is called pyruvate. And once that's broken apart, they can be degraded even further, which is where you're popping off carbons, right? And it eventually becomes acetyl coenzyme A. It goes around the citric acid cycle. You get these FADs and NADs and these electrons, which gets passed into the electron transport chain. You play hot potato from complex 1 all the way to complex 5. And complex 5 is the spinning turbine, which is taking the protons on the outside, electrons on the inside, creating that alternating current or electrical gradient, which spins the turbine, pushes the phosphorus together to create our phosphorus-based energy or our light. Okay. So we got to keep in mind the structure is what's more important. Carbohydrate structure, simplified structure, easier to break down, induces energy into the body much faster. Fat, not so much. Fat has a different viscosity. It's used for integrity of membranes and stuff like that. And it can be used as an inactive electrical storage mechanism for energy. Or we sometimes like to call it a insulator. Okay. And then you have protein, which is just is structural. So if you're building a house, your electrical wiring is your carbohydrates. Your insulation within your walls is your fat. And the structure, the wooden beams, the steel beams, and the structure and the roof and the outside of the house, that's your protein. Okay. So protein, shape of the house, insulation is fat or integrity of the home, how it holds what it's supposed to shield the rest of the body from well. And then there's the ability to power it, which would be your carbohydrates. Okay. So hopped over from his clubhouse replay. Yeah, he kicks out videos pretty fast. I gotta play keep up. But the 11-hour video, the 5-hour video after, and it's at least 4 other videos after, I've pretty much caught up on all of those so far, while at the same time still doing the reading of studies and stuff behind it to check out what it is that he's talking about. Because sometimes this stuff can get terminology heavy. So you gotta, because I don't he's connecting a lot of different points. Like when we talk about the ventricles, for those of you who are not familiar, when Inky says the third ventricle, there are 4 ventricles in the brain. Those ventricles have little pathways between them that cerebral spinal fluid flows within, which is comprised of a bunch of different minerals, which makes the brain buoyant. So that when you shake it around and move it against stuff, it can survive. And we know cerebral spinal fluid flows down the nervous system channels, keep everything hydrated and nice. That's another one of those waters, right? He said fat is like a sealant. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? That's why I said, like, if your house had a structure, beams and steel beams and bricks and stuff on the outside, that's your protein. The insulation, they usually put cushions of insulation within those walls to help the integrity of it, which is what you're calling a sealant. So you don't just have bricks sealing you from the outside. You put some foam and cloth like materials and cotton like materials, insulation basically on the inside of your house walls to help with the integrity of it, which is like a sealant to help keep like outside forces out. It helps maintain heat and cold within your house, those different things, right? So yeah, it's pretty much a sealant. That's what fat pretty much is. But fat in and of itself will not spike your protein. Now remember, fat is a slow burning energy. So a slow burning energy is not going to release sugar fast enough to have insulin spiking. So you don't really have the issue with fats that you're going to have, or fats and proteins that you're going to have with carbohydrates. Okay, so that has to be known. Now, again, we're talking about dead crystal, right? That's what sugar pretty much is. It's dead crystal. Goes into your body. Because remember, when your body receives things from nature, proper fruits and vegetables and things like that, it slowly breaks down and introduces energy into the body. And it has so much water in it to balance things out and fiber so you can get it out your system. And that's what fruit has the ability to do that processed sugars don't. Imagine just taking the sweetest part of like just squeeze out all the juice from the fruit and concentrate all the fiber, all those sugar crystals, and then dry it out. And just take that. That's going to spike sugar levels. It's concentrated. It's not balanced with water. Okay. So that's the issue. Imbalance with water will cause that spike. That's why the artificial stuff is never as good as the natural stuff. The natural stuff has a perfect balance of everything. Remember, there's certain nutrients and enzymes in your body that actually can balance out the release of sugar into the system. So this much sugar comes in because I have a certain amount of this thing over here in my body that allows my body to be able to pretty much neutralize the reaction I would get. And that's one of the things that fruits and veggies are capable of doing, which is why you don't get the issues. Okay. The cerebral spinal fluid contains melanin. I believe so. He may have said that. I don't remember reading. I'm not through the entire new paper that he made yet. I didn't see it saying that the cerebral spinal fluid had it, but I know all cells have melanin in it. All cells, you got the neural cells, in the in the basal membrane, the basement membrane basically of your skin. That's where melanocytes and stuff like that are housed. So that's where melanin is going to be built. But when you notice when you read up on melanin, it always talks about it as if they're trying to balance, they're trying to like tell you that like, oh yeah, it does this, but you know, the skin cancer and all that stuff like that. That's where Inky was saying it's a racist system. Because it's trying to say, like, I mean, I know you got the skin melanin and it's protecting you from the sun's rays and all that stuff like that, right? And it's helping you develop, you know, and they can't even really say it's great when it comes to the vitamin D thing because they really credit UVB for that. The UVB will help you create the vitamin D, but the skin melanin, you know, just protects you from the sun. They're playing that war game again. You know, like when cells have babies, right? Your cells, they call it divide. So they have their warlike mentality and they applied that to melanin. So by applying it to melanin, you see it as if like, oh man, you know, you got the melanin, sun beats down, so it doesn't, you know, you don't get DNA damage and all the stuff like this because you got so much melanin and stuff going on in your body. So it's good that you have it there. However, you're going to be slow absorbing the rays in order to be able to get the vitamin D levels in your body that you need and stuff like that. So it's like a depressing, you know, kind of thing, right? It's like they're giving you the truth, but they're shoving the negative part in there so much. Oh, melanoma, melanoma, melanoma. And that's pretty much what they do to you, right? Is there a list of Dr. Layla Africa's food combination list or anything from you guys? Did Dr. Layla Africa have a food? Well, yes, he did. Oh man, you got to go back to his classic videos, or you have to get man, which book is it in? I'll get back to you on that one. I got to remember which book it's in. Like I have Nutricide because I like to be able to tell the stories that Layla Africa used to tell. Like when you give people information, it's better to tell stories about it than to just give raw data because raw data can be boring. Like people in the gym all the time say, well, how are you able to remember and retain so much information? And I'm like, because I care about it. Anything you care about is going to be easy to retain. So if you guys like try and study something that you don't currently have a personal attachment to or no connection to, it's going to be hard to remember it because it's not linking up very well. So I could go on talking about septohedulose phosphate all I want. Like you're kind of like, okay, yeah, all right, you know, phosphoenol pyruvate, like that's nice, but you know, I just want to start with gallbladder and what that does, and you know, things on a certain level, right? So, is it holistic African health? Maybe, but I thought that that was the one that gave you all the herbal remedies. It probably does have the food in there though. So, yeah, check and let me know. Hold up, who just hit me up? Oh yeah, that's okay. Somebody's hit me up about video stuff. But yeah, gotta figure. What I do know is Laila Africa's videos are still online, and one of those videos literally had like it might have been even been his lecture. He was talking about how to properly combine foods, and I think he was saying stuff like it was weird. It was like you know, lima beans and chickpeas or something like that. But I know the general stuff. Like for instance, acid fruit does not go with sweet fruit. Like that part is a given. But subacid fruits can go with sweet or acid fruits, right? Because they're in the middle. Melons are eaten by themselves. You don't combine melons with anything. So when you see people make fruit salad and it's like grapes and watermelon and cantaloupe and all this stuff, you're not supposed to do that because he's talking about what level certain foods are on and the type of acid your body must create. And if you put two things in the body where one requires a high acid and one requires a low, well, the body kind of has to pick and choose the digestive juice concoction, so to speak, that will most easily dissolve that food within your gut. And if it's a mixture of too many things, it's going to take longer to digest. All right. The septohydrophosphate. If you want to look that up, it actually begins with an S. Look into the actually Dr. Inky kind of pointed you in a direction. Look up the pentose phosphate pathway. And what you're going to find is, I explained this a while ago. It was actually the video was removed when Dr. Inky's channel removed, but I actually went over. I was on his channel one time, and I actually went over the different processes that happen within the body because I was trying to show people how the digestive pathway and the breakdown of the different food that you eat, actually the pathways have connections. And when you hear something, you're like, yo, that's a part of the pathway in like, you know, like let's say glycolysis. Like, yo, that's a word in the pathway of glycolysis. That's in pentose phosphate pathway too. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that there's a way to jump from one pathway to the other. So therefore, if you look at how fat, protein, carbohydrates are broken down and you look at the actual path, you're going to find words that mean something. Like, for instance, glutathione, alpha ketoglutarate. What's the connection? You see what I mean? So you're gonna find that there are words that connect to other words, and what happens is you could be going down a path of one thing, and then it splits. This happens in the pentose phosphate pathway a lot. You go this way, and then it splits, and then you'll see a word there, and what it has to do with how carbons are being shuffled around. That's why the phosphorus appears on the end where there's things happening. Like if you hear isomerization, you might find out that that means that something they flip from one side to the other side. You got bisphosphate, like you got biphosphate, bisphosphate. You'll hear stuff like that. Like, is it two of them and are they together or are they on opposite ends? So you got bis and bi. So all this terminology, that's why it's easier. It's so much going on when you are focused on one path, the data gets a lot easier. So when I say septohydrophosphate, first of all, there's phosphate. Inky always said the light, which is the information that's attached to what's going on, you always find phosphate around. So if it's in the pentose phosphate pathway, you're going to find that one in there. I think there's a like heptocellulose phosphate. And there's the one that I told you, I think has to do with the number 7. Like there's actually a 7 carbon string, right? And obviously pentose phosphate is a 5 carbon string. The glycolysis cycle is a 6 carbon string. That's how glucose generally comes in. Pyruvate is a 3 carbon string attached to the cycle of glycolysis. Acetyl coenzyme A is a 2 carbon cycle. And then depending on where you see the phosphates lay, they may give it a different name. That's why a lot of people tell you the big steps and not the intermediate steps. If you look at the big steps, then the intermediate steps, you actually tend to come up with technology for how to do a thing in real life. That's how they learned how to make like, recycling centers and stuff like that. They said, okay, this mechanism in the body starts with this shape, protein, whatever enzyme, which type of protein, globular protein. They got different types of proteins, but it's shape. Hey, this shape within the body shaped a certain way makes this action happen, causing this cascade of actions to happen, ending in this action shaped like this. So they say, okay, now are there any properties into the thing that makes the shape? Okay, so I can have a bulldozer, but I'm not going to make it out of paper, right? I'm going to make it out of like a hardened steel or some type of major like iron compound, something that really holds up strong that I can dig with. Okay, so what is the material made of? Can I copy it in real life? Can I get it to do? Like if the liver is like one big nuclear plant, then studying the liver is going to tell you how to make a nuclear plant. If the body's job is to turn something from a solid, between chewing and going down into digestion and then letting out, is turning a solid into a liquid form, then maybe you look at that and you figure out how to do it either mechanically or chemically. So that's what studying the body does. So when we're talking about melanin, you're talking about the ability to have the light or the knowledge or the wisdom to interface with frequencies and convert that frequency into energy, like a kinetics kind of thing, right? Mechanical, if you will. So there's a mechanical one, and then there's a friction-based one, right? So I always told people, imagine frequencies coming in as someone shaking you, right? They grab you by the collar and they shake you. And if they shake you real slow, like someone shakes a hand, you could do that all day, go to sleep, and there won't be really any damage to your body. I mean, obviously be boring as hell for someone to shake your hand for that long, but they could shake your hand for a long period of time, very slow, and nothing will happen. But if I come in, like, y'all know how fast like those ground drills work with the construction workers? If I made you hold on to that drill all day, your joints would eventually start to tear apart because the vibration of it is shaking so violently, you can't hold on for but so long before it damages something. Basically, it'll inflame it, damage it, and then eventually tear it apart. And if it tears it apart, any shape that is torn apart can no longer do the function it was denoted to do. So it is no longer the shape doing a function, it's just parts. And now your body has to come gobble up the parts, usually white blood cells, to determine what to do with the parts. Can we recycle the parts over here, or do we have to throw them into the lymph system or the bloodstream and find a way to eliminate it and get it out? Okay, so that's what's actually happened there. Trying to avoid meniscus surgery. Any recommendations food-wise or exercise to help? Anything dealing with anything related to joints, CMOS is going to be number one. Collagen. Here's a classic one for you: glucosamine and chondroitin, methylsulfonine methane or MSM, which most people know for being able to help you regrow your hair. You need sulfur to be able to do that. I'm also hearing there's information about an enzyme called catalase, which will help you do that too. So you guys can look these things up. But yeah, if it's it was your meniscus, is it I guess torn? I would assume it's torn if they're saying that. If something is completely torn, then I would let the doctor kind of show you the x-ray of it and you make a call, because usually when surgery is being offered, you're talking about the difference between time. So if you want something to be fixed in time, then in faster time, then the surgery option is usually the one. Then there's certain surgeries where it's like, do or die, or do or not do or die, but do or don't do, because of the fact that you'll practically be dead in a way if you do it the wrong way. So knee replacement surgery. Once you get it done, chances are you got to keep getting it done. And I don't know any success stories with knee replacement where somebody who was like great basketball player dunking on everybody got a knee replacement and start dunking on everybody again. I don't know if that. So once you get it done, you're pretty much in that cycle. Even though they last for a while, 10 to 15 years, you still got to get injections and still get it replaced and all that stuff like that. So good old glucosamine and chondroitin. Yep. Let me see. Science is its own language. Got to learn the prefixes, suffixes, and root word, or name them yourself. Might take you a while, but that's not impossible. That's something that Dr. Inky is trying to do. He's trying to convert names of things given by the world of white people, basically the Caucasian world, who created all the sciences we have that favors Caucasian biochemistry, and he's trying to rename it to things that actually help us. And that's how important this talk about diabetes and sugar and melanin disease and stuff is, and the new Inky cycle. And for those who haven't caught up yet, the Inky cycle is basically about how sound becomes light. And light is information, and information can be captured by aromatic amino acids. What do we mean by aromatic? When you look up the chemical structure of, let's say, tyrosine and tryptophan, they have something called a benzene ring, and the ring is pretty simple. It's usually a hexagon shape, and the hexagon shape. Think of a beehive. A beehive has that hex shape, and there's stacked hexes next to each other. But in biochemistry, when you see that hex shape, and it's got the double bonds on like alternating corners, that's a light trap. Meaning if there's information being imparted by something like the sun, then that amino acid or that chemical structure has the ability to trap that light or trap the info. And if you have received these amino acids into your body, then you also have the ability to build structures that trap light. And melanin is such a thing, which is built with two amino acids, tryptophan or tyrosine, along with copper and a few other substrates to help turn these melanocytes create melanin. So therefore, if you're using aromatic amino acids to create melanin, then melanin eventually becomes a sort of light trap because it can interface with new frequencies and vibrations. What's the goal here? Let's make it simple. What's the deal with the melanin? All right, imagine, because we're talking about frequencies, vibration, and frequencies and vibration are a type of information. It's pattern recognition. It's shape recognition. And the recognition is not only visual. This is what senses are for. Visual recognition, audio recognition. This whole thing is like the trigeminal nerve, right? It's going in multiple things. Smell, taste, touch. One of those ways you have the ability to interface with frequencies and receive the information from it, so it can be interpreted, so that it can be used for something. So I touch my hair. Maybe that texture can be used for something. You never know, but that's information. Hey, this feels a certain way. Maybe I cut it off and stuff it inside of something and I can use it for insulation, whatever reason, right? But that's the importance of it. So melanin, if everything in the world has a frequency, and these frequencies can vibrate higher or lower or higher or lower, you have to understand the electromagnetic spectrum. Low frequencies are dark to the human eye. because the human eye has a threshold of visual, it's called the visibility spectrum. So there's only, if you have the whole spectrum, there's only a tiny portion in the middle that the eyes can see. Other frequencies may have to be heard, smelt, taste, touch, different types of frequencies. Melanin is such a thing, that's why it's dark, that says I can interface with all frequencies. Because whether the light can be seen, if it's in the visual spectrum or not, it's still light because it's a form of information. How do we know? Because it's vibrating. It's a frequency of some sort. It can vibrate slow, it can vibrate fast. You have to imagine those vibrations in some sort of 3D form, making a certain shape. So imagine a shape that's pulsating at a certain speed. Melanin, because it's dark, is saying that I am saturated of all colors and frequencies. Therefore, no matter what color and frequency you bring me, I can interface with it. And because I can interface with it, I can do something with it. So in the case of melanin and pigment, especially in the skin, the one that we talk about the most, when the sun, that frequency, which is a visual frequency, although the UVB, the actual ultraviolet B rays cannot be seen, you can see the sun is out and you can feel something, right? You feel it because the waves are beating so fast, it's creating a friction on your skin, which makes it heat up. And as it heats up, that friction is creating heat. But because it's a frequency that's beating down, the melanin is able to say, hey, there's a frequency, and absorb it and take it in and decode it, or what we call transduce, meaning if it comes in as a dark frequency, it can break it into different bands of light to slow it down. So infrared over here, put this one over here, ultraviolet over there. So it can do that and then reshape it and radiate it back out. So it allows you to draw it in and push it back out. And because we're extracting electricity out of food, well, sound is a type of frequency and vibration, right? So hence, the sun is light. It's giving off a certain frequency and vibration. It's picked up by the melanin, which absorbs it in, transduces it, radiates it back out in the form, because remember, when the friction is happening, it's generating an electrical current, because we are photovoltaic. Photo meaning light, voltaic meaning voltage. It's not photosynthesis, because that's the ability to convert water and sunlight into a sugar crystal, which is what plants do, and then they dump oxygen so you can breathe it in. But when you breathe in oxygen, you dump out carbon dioxide. So think about it. When you eat your carbohydrates, your fats, your proteins, and all that, the one thing you're maintaining to power your body is usually the hydrogen and the electron molecules. When the oxygen becomes what we call oxidized, meaning you got that positive, negative electrons in there, if you take away the electrons, you get this reactive species or reactive oxygen species, right? And you need antioxidants, which are what? Electrons. They're electrons. The positive ions are bouncing around like they're looking for a boyfriend and girlfriend and can't find one. And you introduce electrons into the body to repair them up. And when they repair them up, they neutralize, they settle. Instead of ping-ponging around, destroying stuff, they link up and they settle and balance one another. Because what is the body? The body is the master of efficiency. There's a reason why it takes time to damage it, depending on how strong the problem is coming in, and it takes time to fix it, because it does it in the most efficient way. We can give it help because herbs impart a certain frequency, vibration, certain types of electrons, shapes, right? And when it does that and it links up with your body, it can cause things to turn and move in different ways and vibrate on different reactions to help it out, moving in a positive or negative direction. Because that's technically what's happening there. I hope all of this makes sense too, because I know I'm kind of letting the mind run and moving all over the place, right? When you're grounding barefoot, does location matter? Example, Long Island versus middle of the country. Yes, it does. Do not ground where earth you're standing on does not meet the internal workings of the planet. So if you're grounding in a park and right below you is a subway station, that ain't gonna work out too well. You need to find organic park ground that goes right to the core of the earth. That's where you can get a lot of free electrons, or just go to the beach. Put your feet on the sand. You got that silica, which is the crystal structure that's also in your bones. You have the ocean, which is full of minerals, and the sun beats down on that thing all day. So you got charged water particles, infrared light coming in from the sun. So basically, think about it: dark side, right? Light side. Less pigmented side will always cause UVB radiation to penetrate a lot faster. So you can create like a conductive loop. You put your hands towards the sun, you put your feet on the ground with no shoes on, because remember, you're talking about conduction and shoes are insulators. So you have to take the shoes off, put the feet in the ground, which has a light sole too. Them free floating ions moving in, gathering some from the sun, you're creating this gradient. Frequency, light, grounding, ions, you're creating this gradient that's powering your body up. And when you're doing that, that's the reason why when they did the studies, they show that any inflammation in your body from like the stress of things being done to it dissipates as you ground. So that's like scientifically proven. Like they have data on that, right? So yeah, so we have this thing is about being able to this bodily structure, the senses that it has. Whether you're talking, you can call melanin the sixth sense if you want, or the combination of all the senses in its own form. But whether it's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, something vibrating down on the skin because you got the melanin, what you are doing is you are receiving information in a certain form. And all forms of information, we call it light, and especially if you're talking to Dr. Inky. Information is light. What other ways do we know that? I've said this before. Words tell you. All the words that have the letters ION in them, dictionary, imagination, that means ion, that means light. So dictionary is, you're talking about spoken light. Imagination, you're talking about the image nation, or the image, nature, light. That's what the three parts would mean. So the nature, you're talking about light nature, images that come from the nature of light. Pineal gland, right? It's piezochromatic. Piezo meaning stress of induces the next word. Piezochromatic. So stress of produces chroma or color. Piezoelectric bone that we have. Piezoelectric bone. So piezoelectric means stress of causes electricity. The bone is a crystal structure that is like, it's like granite, it's like limestone. If you stress it, meaning you strike it and apply some type of stress to it, it will produce electricity because it's piezoelectric. So the pineal gland, when you go to sleep, blood runs through there, certain compressions happen to it, pressure of produces color. So you have images when you go to sleep. So you can dream. Okay. So pineal gland being a really big deal when it comes to that. So let me see. Different frequencies when it comes to, like, if you don't, what are the different frequencies when it comes to what, Snuggles, finish that sentence out. It says, what are the different frequencies when it comes to, like, if you don't mind me asking? I'm trying to make sense of the sentence, so to speak. But if you're talking about in standard, like if you want the easiest frequencies to decode, you can just go to the electromagnetic spectrum. So radio frequency, microwave frequency, UV radiation, gamma radiation, those are different frequencies. What you're talking about, let me see if I kept it in my book. Show it to you in the book if I did. Not in that one. Let's see, because I drew this up before. Nope, doesn't look like I have it in there, but it's not a problem to draw it up. Give me 1 second, right? And then we have, and then we have, and then the other one is, let's see. Sorry, somebody tried to call me. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see what other one I can give you. Oh, this will be a good one because Inky mentions this one. I'm gonna just put this one in there so you guys can see what it looks like. But I need another color to do this one. 1 second. This one's going to look pretty cool. And pick one more color. I need blue. I don't know where my blue is, but I need blue. That'll be the last one. I'll show you guys that one. All right, here we go. Let me see. Put this one up in front of the camera so you can see it. All right, look at this. Try and keep it within the sunbeam. Lower frequency, because the mountain peaks don't happen often within a certain period of time. This is a faster frequency, see? More mountain peaks in a shorter period of time. How do we know? Because the mountain peaks are closer together. Even faster frequency. If you want to make an example out of that, you can call it 2G, 3G, 4G. So you can even call it 3G, 4G, 5G, because 5G has a higher frequency, meaning the mountain peaks happen faster, meaning more often. Okay, what about heartbeat? That's a certain shape of frequency. Okay. And down here, this is what you call transverse longitudinal transverse waves. So it's a wave that goes up and down, right? But it compounds. It's another one that compounds back on it. So when we say types of waves, and I keep talking about shape, this is what I mean. All of these frequencies, the frequency is like a beat. How often, right? The shape is, well, what shape is it? See, you can see the shape, but you can also imagine these shapes in three-dimensionally, like the shape of a basketball, but pulsating, right? And it even though, imagine like you see how coronavirus looks? That's like a basketball with spikes on it. Imagine if those spikes don't sit in one spot, or maybe they do, but they just pulsate at a certain speed. And maybe for each area that spikes out, it's only spikes a certain height. Can you imagine in 3D how many different shapes can be created like that? Okay, take it from a circle, make it a square, and still make it pulsate with spikes. Make it pulsate with bubbles. You can have frequency and shape so many different ways. It could become practically anything. And depending on how fast it's vibrating, right, to create the frequencies, because vibration, we're just talking about how many times you go. Every time my finger goes to the top of the mountain and back down, that's one cycle. But if I keep going up and down and up and down, I can ask the question, how long between each one? Okay. So if I get to the top of the mountain 2 times an hour, the frequency is twice per hour. If I get to the top of the mountain 500 times per hour, it's 500 times per hour. If I turn it into, let's say, electronics, how many times do I run in a circle? Well, do I run in a circle 2 times per hour? Okay, then I would say the frequency is 2 times per hour. What if I do it 60 times in an hour? Well, in the TV world, they call that 60 hertz. The cycle is complete 60 times per second. So that's frequency, how often something is completed. How often what's completed? Well, the movement of a particular shape. See, this is why I always talk about shape. Do I call all shapes proteins? No, but I use protein as the example because everything can have a shape. If the sun is a certain shape, if we could see the rays coming down on it, the rays would have a certain shape. The shape would be 3D though. It would probably be transparent, which means I can reach through it because it's not dense. It's lit. It's light, right? It's a little different. Electricity, it can shoot out like as lightning. That's a certain shape. Why? I don't know, but it's a certain shape. So that's the deal with that. The different frequencies of light. You can determine the different frequencies of light. How would they look if they were on? You would need something that could kind of read it out a certain way. Like the way I drew down those frequencies, like blue, purple, yellow, red, green would have a different shape if it was drawn out on paper. And cameras do it. Like when you actually take a picture on a camera, they have something called a histogram on the back. That shows you the shape of the frequency of the light that came in. And it'll show you the shape of the frequency for red, green, and blue if you turn on the color histogram. If you don't turn on the color histogram, it's just going to show luminance, pretty much luminance value, meaning how bright. So the friction that's induced causes a certain amount of electrical voltage, and the higher the electrical voltage, the more light produced. Hence, you're going to see the white area of the chart spike. And if you shoot it in too much, then it surpasses the visible spectrum in brightness, which means it's going to be flat white. Y'all ever take a picture of somebody standing in front of a window? Well, the contrast is so great, the camera has to choose. So what happens is the person becomes dark and the window becomes light because the contrast is too great. But if there's enough where the outside is like kind of bright, but the inside is decent, if you touch your screen and focus on the person, it'll bring the person in the color focus, but the white will turn bright white because it's such a big difference between the color of the person and the white outside. White just means you broke the ability to see any further induction of light. Because when light combines, it's actually fighting and it turns white. That's what brightness is. It's light fighting within a medium. The clouds would be a medium. That's why the sky turns white when it gets imbued with too much light. You can't see color anymore. You just see white. In saturation, when you put all colors together, it turns black, which is colors in harmony. So bright white is scattered colors, and when you put them in a crystal, they I don't want to say bifurcate, but it's called birefringence, which is where light can like split and move different ways based on the way the crystal is cut. So the light is in there fighting, and it has to have it's trying to escape. So when it does, it scatters. But like crystals, diamonds, and things like that. Y'all ever, my Rolex is, diamonds is jewelry is, ice cold and all, it's glistening, right? When you turn in your hand, you see all these different colors in it because the frequencies of light striking it are birefringent. So whatever angle they bounce out on will determine the frequency that's coming out. So whatever color you see, that's the light that's not being absorbed. That's the one being reflected. So if the diamond is being spun and you see green, that means that the angle that's being reflected at is the frequency of that is creating the color green. The frequencies can be anything. Like I said, it's all about shape and pulsation. So that could become practically anything. So what we call light is the ability to trap and recognize the pattern it is to decode what it is. So your body decodes certain structures and light bouncing a certain way and say, hey, that's green, that's purple, that's brown, that's dark. I can't even see in there. Like these eyes don't have the ability to see when the light turns down too much. It's too bright and it starts to hurt when the light is too bright. Why? Because it's reflecting a strong electrical signal. Your eyes can only absorb but so much at one time. So when it's too strong of a light hitting it, it starts to hurt. It can't decode that much brightness. So, yes, birefringence is the tendency for light to split and scatter a specific way. And there's mathematical equations where you can determine it. That's why they said you have to cut, like, let's say you got a quartz crystal, which a lot of times you can't get any real quartz and it's too hard to tell. But if you cut it a certain way, and then you because it's piezoelectric, if you compress it a certain way, it'll produce light. There are crystals out there that can probably trap light. I have been talking for a long time. I asked questions about this, but I never got to experiment. I asked KT, was there such thing as a piezoelectric wood? He named one, and it was years ago. I can't remember. But I also found out, like, is there crystals that trap certain types of light? Are there piezoelectric crystals? I found out that tourmaline, quartz, and there was another one that Inky pulled up. It kind of had a salt kind of name on it. And he brought this up like a couple of weeks ago. Had a name that was something that had like seemed like it had the word salt in it, but it was the most like piezoelectric one. But quartz was like the most easiest one to stabilize. So they use quartz most of the time for radio. But keep in mind the point was to tune the frequencies coming in, because copper actually is what captured the frequency. And then you could use other parts to kind of attenuate and then amplify the frequency, right? Basalt. Thanks, Moon Rocker. That's the one. Basalt. So yeah, that's the cool part. And what I was thinking was, I was like, all right, so and just let me be a kid here for a second, guys. But I was talking about the ability to get like a crisp. All right, so here's the science. Infrared light is known to help build cell structure. If y'all saw one of Inky's recent videos, he talked about how when the chicken sits on the egg, it's the infrared light that causes things to happen. When mothers think their children are in trouble, it's because there's an infrared signal that connects and binds them together. If you have an infrared sauna and you sit in it, they tell you to use that because it helps restructure the cells. The sun at a certain point in the morning is giving off a part of its spectrum, infrared light, strong infrared light. These things help build and restructure cells. So I was wondering, is there a crystal that could absorb infrared spectrum light? Is there a piezoelectric wood? Meaning, if I am piezoelectric and I have my feet on the ground and I'm in the sun and my body is using melanin, it's very conductive. If the staff I'm holding is wood and that's piezoelectric and conductive, and the crystal can hold light. They used to say that. Now, mind you, like I said, just let me be a little kid for a minute, right? They said, well, what happened was back then staffs would have crystals on it, and if the crystals had infrared light imbued in them, they had the ability to touch people and heal them, right? So I want you to picture Moses and the staff type thing. So I got my feet on the ground. I'm drawing energy from the sun. I got my hands, which also can draw energy from the thing it's touching. So I'm holding this wood. It's piezoelectric. I slam the wood on the ground, which creates a stress, which induces current in the wood and the crystal. So if the crystal, because you always say charge our crystal, if we charge the crystal, we get the infrared light, we strike it to the ground, it causes it to send a charge and shock waves through everything, and then we touch the person with it. Does it do healing? I don't know. Like I said, that's just me being a little kid for a second. I used to talk about that all the time when I was younger because I really wanted to test and run a test. I wanted to run a test on it, but I know, life happens, right? Exactly, on some Merlin type stuff. But that was the catch with that entire thing. So that was just me, digging in the crates of fantasy for a little bit. The science and stuff I told y'all about is correct. There's piezoelectric wood. There's crystals that absorb certain frequencies depending on which one you got. There's you can ground. Piezoelectric does mean that all these things I told you are true. But does throwing all that stuff together equal something can happen with it? I don't know. Maybe we're that far away from nature that we haven't been able to test organic things like that because we're so into electric wiring and chips and grids and stuff like that now. So you can make it happen another way where you may not have to go through that. So who knows? A fungus that makes wood piezoelectric. That might be attached to what it is I was asking KT about on the piezoelectric wood. KT said there was one. So yeah, so let me know if you guys run into it, or I could just text him again and see if I can get him to send me an answer for that again and tell him that's what I pretty much want to test out. Even if it doesn't like do what I say, it would be excellent if you could put like a crystal in the top of the wood, and if you slam it against like organic ground, it induces a current that does something. That alone would be hot. So we'll see. We'll see. And pretty much have fun with that. Especially if one of y'all come up with a way to do it. Yo, if that shit happen, I'm trying to shoot the video. Y'all need to tell me where you at. I'm coming. We're shooting the video. We're gonna have all kinds of fun. But that would be hot. But again, all the science I told you that made me put that idea together is all correct. Like all of that can be researched and easy. Everyone knows that. Um, they know about piezoelectric crystals. Like I said, I didn't find out the type of wood that KT was talking about, but he said there's a piezoelectric wood. We know crystals can be piezoelectric. We know people's bones and certain minerals are piezoelectric. So that's a given. We know putting our foot on the ground produces some type of ionic charge, which we call grounding, right? We know that the sun is inducing electromagnetic waves. We know that melanin can transduce those waves and help create voltage within the body. So with all this electro stuff going on, magnetism attached to it, light, which is the information, the ability for the brain to interface with that information allows it to have pattern recognition, which is how we can store that pattern recognition within our magnetic field, which we call memory, is what allows us to function. So we got all that. We got all that, right? We got all that. So I'm in total agreement. If we can find a way to get the doc to do R&D, because he expresses it well, but I think what scares people off is just structure. Like some people they because of people's past, they want to have certainty with certain things. Like it was funny when Inky said somebody was talking about, I'm gonna send you the loan. You can use the loan to do this and that. And I can understand why Inky laughed at it. Like, why would we throw ourselves in debt with somebody to make this happen? We don't need to do it that way. We just need to put the money up, do the studies. He's going to present the results to us, and we can have at it with the results. But at the end of the day, the discoveries through the doc will be ours. I mean, you figure it's worth funding somebody if they putting in the work and they're the closest to the answer. Like it's better to do it that way than to say, nah, I'm better off if it's me. So I'm gonna just keep studying and I'm gonna catch up and figure all this out. And okay, but if somebody else can already do it, then what most people need to do is not being scared to express what their limitations are from helping. Most people are scared to do that in the community. They're scared of, I don't know, what they want to be liked. If there's something you can do, say it. If it's something you can't do, be like, look, the only reason that I can like me, I can share videos, talk about the doc all day long. Can I commit $85 to $100 a month? If I stretch the hell out of it, yeah, but I'd prefer to not be in debt to like the fucking system if I can help it then it's easier to do. It was something that I used to say to my church, like, as important as what you're saying is, that's something that flows over time. Now, if I find immediate benefit to like financial gain to get me out of debt, then you're damn right I'll invest the money. But that would be my direct statement. Like, this is the only reason why. So I help out the best I can. Like for the Bible readers out there, what do they say? Gold and silver I have none, but that which I have, So it's nothing wrong with talking about the data, sharing the data, bringing people up to speed on the data, and the people who do. If y'all read Claude Anderson's book, he talked about the classes of people that build us together as a unit. And a financial class exists within that. Those are the people who are like, look, details, schmetails, I believe in y'all. I'm just funding it. I don't want nothing to do with the info and all this and all that. You have funding classes. That's what that's for. He said you need your funding class, the people who just want to put out the money. And you need your knowledge class. You need the people who just know the work. That Inky would be a part of that. KT would be a part of that. There's different people who would be a part of that study class, that wisdom class, who will actually produce the product. And then you have your support class, and that's your large populace, like a pyramid, right? There's a large base and populations of people. They might put a little money, they might be helpers and all that stuff like that. They're the people who do the voting and all that. They're your footwork. They're the ones who pass things around, consume, do all those different things. So everyone has their area on the pyramid that they're supposed to work within. People just need to be realistic about where they are and be utilized the way it is. So if Inky's having trouble getting his 100 people, $85 a month or $100 a month or whatever, then the best thing we can do is we can see if we can find that financial class for him who will continue to pump it. And again, people need to be willing to express any dispositions they have. Like, why would you not want to do it if you can? What's the holdup? Because that's how we grow. And we can't be scared of that type of criticism either. No different than Inky can dish it out. I'm pretty sure he can take it. I think people get scared because the way that they give their criticisms, right? People give their criticism like somewhere else. Like, let me go over to this person's channel and talk about you and tell it to somebody else. Just tell it to the person directly. Like if I have to say something to Inky and KT, I say it directly. Like it's social media to be like, oh man, that ain't gonna do nothing. That's just gonna make the person be like, yeah, niggas is weird. They turn their back on me, they stab me in the back. That's when you hear all that stuff. So yeah, we need to go back to the real wise way of living, which is the ability to speak and people to hear you and take in the information and accept. And again, like not every criticism is going to be valid. Everybody who gets criticized had to search within themselves, check what's being said to determine whether it's true or not, and improve one way or the other. If someone says that if they go around telling the world you're a stingy person, you have the right to come to them and say, prove to me how I am. Well, and they got videos and receipts like crazy, then you got to eat that. But if it's like, yo, you come to that person direct and be like, yeah, you said I was a cheat and a scam and all this stuff like that. So show me some proof. Well, man, I just think and believe and possibly, and it's like, all right, so you're trolling, you bullshit. Like you just mad, like for some reason. You need to just spit it out. You wish it was you in a certain position and it's not. Like, you just gotta be real with stuff, right? So when we start doing that with one another, and we know not everyone's going to take criticism lightly. Not everybody's at that non-traumatic point where they can be peaceful with whatever criticism they receive. Not everybody's at that point. But you go through talking to different people, interfacing with different people, never giving up, because eventually the amount of people who are ready, that's going to be a strong force to be reckoned with anyway. We don't need the entire Black community to make the Black community work. We just need a good, sound group of Black people who are doing the right thing and create enough to be noticed. Because when other Black people panic who didn't want to be a part of your solution, they're going to find their way to it when the time comes. Like, yeah, man, they was doing this and that, and I figured I'd come over here with y'all. Now, you could say, well, you didn't believe in us, you didn't invest in us, you didn't even care back then. But in their mind, it's like, I mean, look at the life we live in. Motherfuckers are scamming and doing this and that, and I don't know who to trust. And y'all come in and it sounds like everybody else. I just didn't think it was a smart investment. And we might say, well, why didn't you just say that before? Well, man, I want to put my business out there and do this and do that. See, that not living in truth makes things harder. So has it been said that I am a stingy person? No, not even close. I just use that as an example. Like the one thing you'll never hear about me is you'll never hear me being called a stingy person. That'd be borderline for some people. They feel like that's borderline impossible. Like, have I ever been stingy to somebody in my life? I mean, yeah, you go back to me and my brother as little kids, it was plenty of back and forth, but Nah, not even close. When I was growing up, I was known as more stubborn, you know, the person who's told because I grew up in a family structure where it was like, I'm the adult, you're the child, and whatever I say, I've been where you've been before, so shut up and just listen. So when I got older, the whole shut up and listen thing doesn't fly with me anymore. At the very least, if you're right, you need to hear what I have to say before we make that determination. I'm not one that's quick when someone just says, "Hey, I need you to do that," and I just go do it. Is you would have to prove to me the damn earth is going to blow if I don't move instantly. Like time has to be a factor. If time is not a factor instantly, I'm going to be stubborn in figuring out what it is you're trying to do because but you're going to reap benefits from that because when I have a full understanding of what you're trying to do, I can push it. And there's a lot of people who are kind of like, can I just say something and you just do it? And I'm like, no, that my past tells me not to be that kind of person. Because whenever that happens and I get hurt, it's like, well, you didn't have to listen. Then it gets used against you. So that's what that is. What is a haplogroup? I'm assuming that's coming from the yeah, do as I say, not as I do, right? Explain what is a haplogroup. So Inky didn't want people to get caught up in that because it can get really deep. But a haplotype, so blood type is am I A, B, O, AB, positive or negative, right? You got the different blood types. And the blood types are nothing more than what antigen is on your blood to determine what types of proteins you can or cannot accept into your body. That's the starting ground for it. Haplogroups are more like what are the individual environmental changes that shape the type of person genetically you are. And that can be shifted based on what's happening in the environment. Do you come from a sunny and rainy climate? Do you come from a straight equatorial climate? Do you come from a polar climate or anything in between? And what happens is some of those things have commonalities between it, which makes them a group. Okay. So that's technically what it is. Basically, the more details you can get on that, which you're only going to find out when you start testing stuff anyway, you're basically trying to find out what environment your body has the best affinity to because that'll make you live the easiest life on earth. So chances are a highly dark person is going to have an easy time living in Senegal, Egypt, the Sudan, like places like that. But because of all the mixing in the world, you got all these different groups because now you got somebody who might be from the deepest, hottest zone in the world and the person from the coldest zone in the world mixing together. And then you wind up having to be somewhere like Greenland. And you're like, how the hell's that work? Like, but that's kind of what if that makes sense, that's pretty much what haplotype is in a nutshell. All right. What else we got? I'm about to finish out here where I'm at and I'm about to head home. So if you guys got any other questions, um, let me know. I'll do about 5 minutes, go over some other stuff, especially if it's related to diabetes, because a lot of Inky's new information is about the new cycles he's discovered. You're talking about the Inky cycle, the Real cycle. A lot of people are going to have to do some looking up on that third ventricle within the brain because the third ventricle. Remember, we always talk about if you guys look at the event me and Inky did together, which is on his page. It was originally called the Philadelphia Experiment. But if you look at the lecture me and Inky did, it's about a 4-hour video, 4.5 hours. I talked in the very beginning about spiraling and how the pattern in which things unfold in the universe is in a spiral pattern, golden ratio type stuff. And I'm not surprised that the shape of the third ventricle is a cone, which is technically a vortex pattern. So in the Inky cycle, he talks about the coherent water domain and the I guess you could say the Tesla coil like nature, like the spiraling nature of how things maneuver and shape and come together, right? Explain the meaning of antigen because I remember you used a lot of the words meaning not regular. Okay. Antigen is something against genetics. So a virus would present antigens. Antibodies is something that fights off an antigen. So if a virus comes in, and you get these antigenic like activities going on, an antibody will come in and bind to it to neutralize it or eat it up and destroy it. So an antigen is just anti-genetics. So something against your genetics. So we can call that an antigen for short. What is there a way to measure your insulin levels apart from the fasting glucose test? Let me see. That's a good question. I'm just familiar with the commonality test, like the A1C test is the one that I had, and glucose levels. That's what I'm familiar with. And of course, the fasting glucose test is that's kind of like doing a blood pressure test. Hey, we're going to check you 3 times a day. And the weird thing about it is you're damn near doing nothing. I don't want you to have just ate, just exercise. I want you sitting down. I want your arms elevated to a certain point. And it's resting blood pressure, right? Like, I'm not really the biggest fan of that. That's one of those things I would let the doctors just straight interpret. Like, show me the numbers and explain how the numbers work. And once they do that, your job is to just make sure that if they're in bad levels, which usually means high, do what you need to do to bring them down. And there's testing strips and testing machines for sugar levels in like CVS's and Walgreens and stuff like that. You can use those. Um, but the key is to try and get the average level down. And just remember, because like, let's say your A1C levels are high above that 6.5 point, just because you get the glucose and the A1C levels down does not mean instantly they won't spike fast, because is different than tolerance is different than stagnant numbers. So when you're first born and you get introduced to sugar and stuff like that, your body's like, ooh, what is that? And then over time, it'll do a hard spike and it'll stay up for a while and it'll come down. When your body builds a tolerance, it eventually is the type where it's like, okay, we have recognized something comes in the body and it must be used or gotten rid of quickly. So what'll happen is when it comes in, the moment the body has a system set up now that when that thing comes in, it grabs hold of it very fast and it causes the numbers to spike real quick because it knows how to deal with it faster. So getting the tolerance to go down is not the same as, recovering from the condition. You need to add more time for tolerance to go down. You have to teach your body that that thing is not a threat coming in on a regular basis anymore. Because as if it comes in on a regular basis, in order for your body to keep you out of toxicity levels, it has to spike it real fast so it can respond fast. And like Inky showed, when you eat glucose, when you have high tolerance levels, it'll spike insulin for about 5 hours. And if you eat more carbohydrates within the 5 hours, now you elevate it even more and more, and it never comes down. And then eventually your body's like, so much glucose is just sitting in the blood. And the purpose of me putting insulin out is to tell the body to burn it up. And if it never happens, after a while, they call it resistance, meaning it's there, but I'm resisting utilizing it because I keep putting it out there and nothing's happening. And remember, insulin is not a requirement to burn sugar. It's a signal that sugar is available to be burned. When you have too much sugar available, if the damn cell door opens up, the insulin and the glucose mainly starts piling the hell in because it's everywhere in the blood. So it's not hard for your body to know to bring it in. However, if you get insulin resistance and now your sugars are very low, it's floating out there in the bloodstream and the cells don't quite have something knocking on the door saying it's available. So the insulin is just a signal to let the body know, hey, sugar's available, take it up. But when it's everywhere, it's like open the door and the floodgates, it comes pouring in. So you burn it, and keep burning it. And eventually when the door opens, there's no sugar sitting out there, which means the body can say all things can normalize. And as it slowly comes down, because remember, the body is push and pull response. More toxicity, higher and higher blood pressure to deal with it. More sugar, higher and higher sugar levels, and the body's response to that elevates over time. Eventually, the responses reach a critical mass, meaning anything beyond that, something's going to break. That happens in work. If you're a worker who gets papers in a bin and someone overflows that bin, there's going to come a point where you can't finish that paper. You can't finish processing those papers on that day. If somebody has a machine inside of a building that can operate at very high and low levels, and it starts to operate at a high level too long, there's a warning in the system that's going to go off telling, it's critical levels reached. You can't continue to do this or something's going to break. And when it breaks, it might be real bad. Well, that's how it is in your body. When it breaks, the thing broken, like eyesight. Once the blood vessels break up, what you going to do, right? If your blood vessels are just drying out, that's when you're starting to have the vision problems. But if them joints break, maybe the vision's gone now. So, do I offer videography or photography classes? Yes, I do. I can teach it online and I can teach it in person, especially if you're in Philly. I've already done it actually. I taught classes at a high school over the summer, and I put up. If you look at my Marvin Burwell photography, I have a page that I'm not active on that page anymore, but there's videos on that one and on this page with like me telling you the basic 4 videos you need to know about photography, and the whole thing only takes about an hour. It's like 20 minutes per video, and I give you examples and all kinds of stuff, what equipment to buy, to look for, and all that. So I'm needing help with that. Just drop me a message on Instagram or just put something in the chat below the video when we're done. How would you have an antigen in your blood when you are natural or some part of it? If you're talking about in the blood, remember, it's genetics. So what happens is when you're in a certain environment and certain things happen in that environment, the body might find that in that environment, certain other things are damaging. Like for instance, let's say you have B positive blood. I'm trying to remember how the blood thing goes, but what happens is like if you mix like like one blood type is negative and one is positive, and you mix those two bloodstreams together, you're going to get a rejection in your body. Because remember, we might all have eyes, ears, nose, mouth, hair, all that stuff, but we look different. So clearly, even though these objects work the same, the shape is different. And when you have a different shape, the pieces that make the shapes turn and vibrate and move also have a different shape. Same function, different shape. And if form denotes function, that would be the reason why, okay, because unless things are missing, like if you're talking about the melanocortin-1 receptor, if you have an issue with that, then you can't even convert your skin pigment cells into melanin. So you got some danger if you're sitting in UVB light, because your body is receiving the stimulant to tell it to start building more melanin sites. So if you have a deficiency in melanocortin-1, you can't even build new melanocytes, which means you're in hell when you're in the sun regardless. And an extreme lack of that, they call that albinism. Antigen, in the case of blood, it just tells you, what things you have, what I would like to call an affinity or a balance to. Some people can be around cats and dogs and don't have allergic reactions. I don't have a reaction as long as it's a spaced out place with windows open, but a cat comes and rubs itself up against my skin, my nose or my eyes, and my body is flaring to hell. But just a cat being in a room or a dog being in a room, as long as it's aerated, I'm not going to have any issues. I'm allergic to shellfish. I have ran a small test theory before where fresh water stuff, I didn't have a reaction, but that was a rare chance where I checked that out. But that would be a case of not saying using the word antigen, but an antigen is a type of protein on the surface of your blood and your cells, well, on the surface of your blood. So if the shape doesn't mesh and lock up really well with the other thing you're matching it up to, then just like anything, like you're not going to take a screw out of a TV with a rubber band. Shapes don't match up well enough to do it, but a screwdriver, Phillips head or flat, will lock in quite well and allow it to turn. So when you're talking about antigens, you're talking about the same thing. You're talking about a protein that doesn't work with another protein. So when you try and put them in the same space to make them do something, they don't, and they cause things to jam and mess up. And you would call that an allergic reaction you would get. And allergic reactions can be dangerous. When you mix wrong blood types, you can poison someone's blood and kill them. So I'm assuming that the HbA1c test gives a good indication of diabetes due to the 90-day blood recycling period. Is that right? Yeah, I was using the A1C count. And the A1C count says if you're at 6.1 to 6.4, you're pre-diabetic, and 6.5 and over is actually diabetic. When they first test it, if the numbers is not radically high, they'll retest you in a certain period of time to see if they can deem if that's exact or not, right? Yeah, George, you already know. Like, I'll be messing with your cat a lot. I don't have any allergic reactions until I do the one thing I always do, which is I'm petting the cat for a long period of time, and while I'm talking, I like rub my eye, and here we go. Now I got pink eye until I wash it out or do something like that. If I continue to do it, it's going to be a real uncomfortable night. So, but yeah, that's that. So yeah, I'll if you guys have no more, I'm gonna get out of here. I'll take one more if you got it, but I gotta get out of here soon. So in about 5 minutes, if there's no other question, then I'm a rack up and rack out. But yeah, just wanted to give say my piece. I have to finish reading the full study Dr. Inky put out. Don't you people like Don't you people like to pet cats? My wife is a huge fan of cats. Like when she was growing up, the cat was one of the funnest things about her childhood. So she also volunteered a lot, taking care of cats. Sometimes there's that thing when you were young that you have a strong affinity to because it was one of the positive forces in your life. Like for me, video games, toys, playing basketball outside, having friends around. Like I hung around a lot of family. So those, you know, talking to the family, like talking to y'all, especially when we have like real live events where I could be around people. That's a really big deal to me. Talking about like things with people and a little entertainment, some music, some b-boy people battling and dancing, all that classical stuff, right? And video games, I'm into all of that stuff. So the entertainment value of life, making things look good and peaceful and all that good stuff. So I do my work, but I always like people to enjoy themselves, and they can enjoy themselves when they're in the lane they're supposed to be in. Am I a polygamous? Am I polygamous by nature or am I monogamous by nature? Am I or people? I personally think I think the being with a single person, I can only speak from a man's point of view. I think being with a single person is more of a a nature thing. Like that's a social constructed thing because if it was all about being with one person, then you would have once you get with one person, you would have nothing in you would ever say to be attached to another person. And we know getting married does not mean people become unattractive. That's bullshit. So we to keep the peace because it's about a peace thing. You don't have to go out and body count like crazy. You shouldn't have the body count like crazy to be satisfied in life. But if you feel so, if you have feelings that run through you, like, oh man, I would be interested in what it's like being with that person, it ain't got nothing to do with not loving the person you with or hating the person you with. That's normal human emotions. We just don't express them because it's ignorant. Like, you're not gonna run around telling your wife, like, yeah, I want to be with them and counting, doing body counts and shit like that. I think it's more natural for people to have like a is my wife on here? She might be in the chat right now, but we have these kind of conversations. Like we've been in like what do you call it? Like couples events before where they'd be like, yo, who's your crush, right? And just because someone's your crush don't mean you cheat on your wife with them. You'd be hard pressed to like that's the reason we name these people. Like there's if I were to ask my wife who was her crush, which I know who it is, I'm not gonna name it on here, obviously. That's for our fun to talk about, but she can name her crush, I can name mine. Does that mean I would cheat on her if that person is around? No, but I certainly come back to her and be like, yeah, we need to get down with the get down because I just came into contact with this person and I'm feeling some type of way. So you nullify it by having fun with your best friend, which should be your significant other. So it's not for me, it ain't that difficult, but I'm not in a celebrity position where like you don't even get a chance to lock down with one person because ass is being thrown at you everywhere you go. So, you kind of got to do a LeBron James thing. You got to really stick to the person you've known for a long time who you can trust. Because if you wait till you're older and you a celebrity and you out there in front of everybody, I mean, every relationship is damn near fleeting. Oh, snap, this is the best I ever felt around a person today, but your career been going on for a while. You found this person, feels better than every other person you've been in front of, but now you're kind of giving this person more time. What happens if you run into another person like that? None of these people really got enough time for you to have that feeling of not cheating and wanting to leave and hoping that things go perfect from your partner. Like all that's all, a lot of our lives are socially constructed. Like in general, at least from when I grew up, a lot of men have this thing where it's like, ooh, look at her over there, look at her over there. It's not about cheating because someone's offering you ass. You cheat because it's different. That's me and my cousin had a conversation about that a while ago. It's all about things being different. That's a different experience. But you can have different experiences with the person you're with, depending on how open they are to those kinds of things. Like I like the way that women dress more. Like a more flirtatious way for women to be to me is how they dress. I get my wife to dress damn near any way that I want her to. I mean, I wouldn't force her to do something that she hates, but for what I'm satisfied for, my wife will provide. So I don't have to worry about that. But I would hope other people have friends like that. And if she tried to confide in me, like, hey, if she were to say, like, today, I just want to see you in a suit, or maybe she want to see me in like a chef's outfit cooking food, that's not a problem. Like, if that's like going to be a fun, different thing for me to do for that day, like, yeah. Will we do everything for one another? No, not everything. We would do a lot of things within reason, things that are fun. We like to laugh, joke, travel, and do things like that. So to me, get with your best friend, marry your best friend, so you ain't even got to deal with all that. Otherwise, find a bunch of women who don't mind being with you together, or a woman find a bunch of men who wouldn't mind being with them together. Like, do what you got to do. Are men more polygamous than women? Yes or no? And please explain what you have known. You really like this subject, don't you? Yeah, George. Yo, George, we should do a live stream on this one. Snuggle seems to really like this concept here. We'll probably do a live stream on this on George's channel. I think George gives excellent perspectives when it comes to the when men have that free perspective versus having a family perspective. He That would be an excellent channel to do that on. But for me, it's kind of hard to answer because I'm a man first. So I guess it depends on your upbringing. In today's world, women have socially been groomed year after year after year to say like, nah, you just kind of you birthed a baby from this person and you're one of his wives and you just take care of the home and that child and do this and that. It's more like I think because of the social structure, like men are going to be inclined to be more polygamous. It's a social structure thing. It's it's his story, not her story, right? But in the past it was easier because you got to read like Psychology of the Mind and Analysis of the Ego. Those are two of the books that were written. I think Gustave Le Bon was one of the people and Sigmund Freud was the other one. But you got to read books on psychology. I used to ask myself, how come I can watch wrestling and the men pretend like and do their little stomp slap to the women, and on movies they slap the women, and it's funny as hell. They get knocked over tables and they choke them and slap them, and the men get their balls kicked and all this stuff like this, and I'm laughing. But if I see these things happen in real life, I'm not laughing. What psychologically made me feel that way? Versus another person who comes and they're from a culture where you get out of pocket, you get slapped, and they don't feel bad about it at all. They mad, they slap you, go on about it. Social construct. So the mind can be bent to be the will of whatever. It's going to always show the consequences of what you're doing. Like, you can only alienate enough women before there's no more to alienate, right? But if you treat everybody peaceful and loving, everything will be peaceful and loving. But then if you go too far in that direction, then everybody's just frivolous and it's just one big F fest, so to speak, right? So yeah, that question is going to be answered differently depending on who you're talking to because of the social construct. Explain the biochemistry of polygamy. I'll do that in another. I'll explain what I know in another live stream. Oh, they said you've been doing your Tinder thing. Is that what it is? Yeah, Moon Rocker. We'll do that on another one. We'll have fun with these concepts a little bit. On the planet, girls or boys, which one are seated most on the planet? Meaning, who gets born the most? Oh, according to what we've been taught, I never did a statistical study, but they say women outnumber men 5-1. So therefore, obviously, if it was going to be somebody who was exercising major options, it would be the men based on that logic, right? But I don't know. We just get the statistics as they're given. I'm not going to say I researched that one and be like, yeah, I checked it out, and men outnumber women 5-1. Like I never actually did the study on that, so I can't be 100% certain. But for years, we've always been told women outnumber men 5-1. So apparently men get the pick of the mill, and for the women, like you just wanted to unlucky. They make it seem like you're one of the unlucky ones out if you don't get chosen by somebody. So that's where that whole concept of, the women, women get mad when you play this, they have to be saved kind of thing, right? Like, oh, so you're saving me. And I'm like, not a fan of that conversation. No, it's not about saving you. But I do tell women that there is a positive function in your life on the fact that, it's annoying that you can get hit on multiple times a day and that shit can get boring. And you have days where you're like, you feel like a celebrity. I just don't feel like being bothered today. And you could just have on some baggy sweatpants and have a nice butt and boobs and you're still going to get hit on. So certain women where it's like they try and they're just going to get hit on. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a positive factor that any given moment, the right one in all factors could walk up to you and hit on you. Like that's a positive. Of course, it comes with its negatives. You got to make sure it's not. You got to watch to see if it's a creep, if somebody's going to harm you, and it comes with its negatives like everything. Like with men, you got to hope that you don't pick a woman who's nice in the beginning and later on she's beating the hell out of you, trying to find a way to push your buttons to get you to hit her so she can ruin your whole damn life. Like, everybody got to take that gamble, right? Somebody don't marry you and get with you, and then when you make all this money one day, they find a reason to divorce you and take half. Like, we created situations where it's fleeting. Like, the answer could be different depending on the situation. Yeah, see, George said he'd come in the room naked with the bow tie, top hat, and Timberlands, and that might be her thing, right? Who naturally shares their partner easier, women or men? My perspective, it's been women, but that's just my perspective, and it's a pretty shallow one. I'm not the person who's going to be able to fully detail that conversation, but from my life, watching the friends around me and what I know, women share their partner uh a lot faster. But then you got these swinger crews that would add a whole new dynamic to the argument. So, that's here nor there. No, you good, Black Voltron. I mean, I'm about to get out of here, do my thing. Yeah, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Wouldn't a Timberland insulate your feet from getting the natural current from the ground? I guess that depends on if his house is made of wood and it's grounded in natural ground. But if it's synthetic flooring and carpet and all this stuff, although carpet you can get static electric flow, but that all depends on what location they're in. Yo, peoples, this is real. It's been real. Let me get out of here, finish up my day. It'll probably rechecking with you guys. Would it be tomorrow? It won't be tomorrow. I got indoor photography. I'm doing some groups tomorrow, so I don't know. I'll find a time, but if it's not this week, as usual, I'll pop in, on a weekly basis. Second Ezra in the building. Yeah, we just went over some stuff. I've been on here for an hour and a half, guys. I'm past due. I gotta go grab my stuff and get out of this area. But yeah, get at me in the chat. Second Ezra. You guys let me know on the creative end. I got to get you guys a video that you can just watch. Some of these non-live videos where I can be more creative at home. So drop some words after I stop the video. Go back in the comments because they separate live video comments from the comments that come after the video is uploaded. So put this after we end the live, then you guys can put some ideas in there, like what would be an excellent video for me to provide visuals and stuff that I could just put up where you guys can watch it, where I can do something really creative. Oh, Snuggles, I could go in on that one. But like I said, we're gonna get out of here right now. And we can go over that. That was actually something that was a fun one. Inky did that in a lecture a long time ago. I was smart enough to download all his classic lectures. So I might ask him if he wants me to put those up. I can ask him, and then I'll throw them Jones up. I don't know which one it's going to be in, but I got some good classics that I downloaded of him. But yeah, peoples, until next time, love y'all. I'll get at y'all a little bit later. Peace out.